The Osun warning: how Adeleke's victory exposed new questions for APC ahead of 2027. Welcome to Nigeria Wave. The Osun governorship election has produced a clear winner, but the political meaning of the result goes far beyond who occupies the government house in Osogbo. On August 15, 2026, Osun voters went to the polls in an election that attracted national attention because of its implication for the state, the APC, Southwest, and Nigeria's political calculations ahead of 2027. When the votes were counted, Incumbent Governor Ademola Adeleke, contesting under the Accord Party, emerged victorious. Adeleke secured 511,067 votes, while the APC candidate Bola Oyebamiji polled 444,815 votes. That gave Adeleke a winning margin of 66,252 votes. He also won 19 of Osun's 30 local government areas, while the APC won 11. Those figures tell us who won, but the bigger story is why the APC lost, what Adeleke's victory really represents, and whether the result contains an early lesson for 2027. Adeleke previously contested and won under the People's Democratic Party, but for the 2026 election, he moved to Accord and used the party as a platform for his re-election. Therefore, describing the Osun election simply as an APC-versus-PDP battle would miss one of its most important political dimensions. The PDP was not the vehicle that delivered Adeleke's victory. Accord was, and that raises a fascinating question for Nigerian politics. Can a strong candidate become more important electorally than the party platform on which he or she contests? Osun appears to provide an interesting example. Accord does not have the national political machinery of the APC, yet the party will now control Osun because Adeleke was able to transfer his political support, organization, and personal appeal to that platform. This does not mean Accord has suddenly become a national political heavyweight, but it demonstrates the power of a strong candidate. Adeleke was not an unknown challenger coming into this election. He was the incumbent governor. For 4 years, voters had seen his administration. He had established political structures across the state. He had built a recognizable political identity, and he had the advantage of asking voters to retain him rather than asking them to take a chance on an entirely new administration. That incumbency mattered, but incumbency alone does not guarantee victory. The fact that Adeleke won under Accord suggests that his political appeal and local organization were strong enough to survive outside the PDP platform. That is perhaps one of the biggest lessons for this election. A party can provide the platform, but the candidate still has to sell the platform to the voters, and in Osun, Adeleke appears to have done that successfully. Then why did the APC lose? This is the question the APC must now confront. Bola Oyebamiji was not simply another opposition candidate. He contested under the APC, the ruling party at the federal level, and the party led by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The APC has a powerful national structure. It has a significant political presence in the Southwest, and it entered Osun hoping to reclaim the state. But after the votes were counted, its candidate was defeated by more than 66,000 votes. That is a significant margin. So the APC must look beyond the final numbers and ask difficult questions. Was the candidate strong enough? Did the campaign connect with voters? Was the grassroots structure effective? Were there internal disagreements? Did the APC underestimate Adeleke's popularity? Did voters prefer continuity, or did state-level issues simply matter more than the national strength of the APC? These are questions the party must answer before 2027. Because if the APC only sees Osun as a defeat, it may miss the opportunity to understand why it happened. Bola Oyebamiji's reaction also deserves attention. Rather than immediately rejecting the result, he said he respected INEC's position and supported the APC's ongoing review of the election. At the same time, he raised concerns about alleged attacks on APC members and supporters and called on security agencies to intervene. That response creates an important balance. The APC can review the election while maintaining peace. If the party believes there were genuine irregularities, those concerns can be pursued through lawful channels. But if the review ultimately shows that the defeat was primarily political, then the party has an even more important task. It must learn from the defeat. For the APC, the most useful question is not simply who won. Now we come to the most sensitive part of the story. Does Adeleke's victory mean President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has lost Osun? No, it would be inaccurate to present the result as a personal defeat for Tinubu. The president was not on the ballot. The election was a governorship contest and state-level factors, candidates, local structures, and incumbency were important. But that does not mean the result is irrelevant to Tinubu. Tinubu is the leader of the APC. Osun is politically important in the southwest, and the APC clearly wanted to demonstrate its strength in the state. So while Adeleke did not defeat Tinubu personally, the APC suffered a political setback that Tinubu's political camp will have to study. The question should therefore not be, has Tinubu lost the southwest? There is not enough evidence to make that claim. The better question is, has Osun shown that the APC cannot take southwest voters for granted? That is a much more meaningful question, and this is where another important development enters the story. President Tinubu congratulated Ademola Adeleke on his victory. This is politically significant because Adeleke defeated the candidate of Tinubu's own party. Yet, the president acknowledged the winner. This adds an important democratic dimension to the election. It shows the result does not have to become a personal battle between Tinubu and Adeleke. The president can accept Adeleke's victory as a democratic outcome while the APC separately examine why its candidates lost. Those two positions are not contradictory. In fact, they may be healthy for democracy. The message is straightforward. Political opponents can compete fiercely, but when the votes are counted, the outcome can still be acknowledged. This is especially important as Nigeria approaches the much bigger political battle of 2027. Tinubu's congratulatory message does not erase the APC's defeat. It does not answer why Oyebamiji lost. It does not remove the need for an APC review, but it does demonstrate that the election should not automatically be interpreted as a personal war between Tinubu and Adeleke. Think about the sequence. Adeleke won, Oyebamiji lost, the APC suffered a setback, Adeleke contested under accord, and then Tinubu congratulated him. This is a much more complicated political picture than simply saying Tinubu versus Adeleke. The election was about candidates, parties, local politics, and voters. And the president's reaction reinforces the idea that a political party can lose an election without democracy itself losing. For Adeleke, the congratulation also means the campaign period can now give way to governance. He has won another 4-year mandate. The question is no longer whether he can win. The question is, what will he do with the mandate? Another important lesson from Osun is that voters can make different choices at different levels. A voter can support a particular candidate nationally and still choose another candidate at the state level. This means the APC cannot assume that national popularity automatically translates into governorship victories. Adeleke's victory can reflect his performance, personality, family political history, local organization, and incumbency. Oyebamiji had to convince voters that a change was preferable. The results suggest that the APC was unable to make that argument strongly enough. Also, Adeleke's victory in 19 out of 30 local government areas is also significant. This was not simply a narrow victory built around one overwhelming stronghold. His support was spread across a substantial portion of the state. The APC won 11 local government areas, but Adeleke secured the majority. For the APC, the local government breakdown should become part of its post-election study. Where did it lose? Where was its support strongest? Where did Adeleke make unexpected gains? What happened at the grassroots? Those questions could reveal much more about the election than the overall vote total. Is Accord now a national threat? Not necessarily. It would be an exaggeration to suggest that one Osun victory has transformed Accord into a national political heavyweight, but the results demonstrate the potential of alternative platforms. For years, Nigeria politics has been dominated by the APC and PDP. Osun provides another possibility. A strong politician with an established political base may be able to use a smaller party as an effective electoral vehicle. That could become irrelevant ahead of 2027. Politicians will be watching. Could more influential candidates explore alternative parties? Could smaller parties become platforms for political alliances? Could personality and incumbency sometimes outweigh the strength of a major party? We do not yet know, but Osun has certainly opened that conversation. Should the APC panic? No, but it should pay attention. The Osun result is a setback, not the collapse of the APC. The party still controls the federal government. It remains one of Nigeria's strongest political organizations, and there is still time before the 2027 general election. The APC can review its candidate selection process. It can strengthen its grassroots machinery. It can provide internal coordination. It can study voter consent, and it can learn from Adeleke's ability to win outside the traditional major party structure. The danger is losing an election and learning nothing from it. We must also avoid reading too much into one state election. Osun cannot determine who will win the 2027 presidential election. The presidential contest will involve national issues, the economy, security, political alliances, presidential candidates, and voter sentiment across the entire country. So it would be wrong to say Adeleke defeated the APC, therefore Tinubu will lose in 2027. That conclusion is too simplistic, but it would also be a mistake for the APC to dismiss Osun. The result demonstrates that a strong incumbent can defeat the ruling party even when contesting under a smaller platform. That is the warning, and the psychological effect could be important. The opposition will look at Osun and see evidence that the APC can be defeated. The APC will look at Osun and ask what went wrong. Smaller parties will look at Adeleke and ask whether they can become more relevant, and voters will be watching how the major parties respond. For Adeleke, the celebration will eventually end. He now has another 4 years to govern Osun. The voters who return him to office will expect results. His administration will be judged on development, infrastructure, education, healthcare, employment, security, and other issues affecting ordinary people. If he performs well, his political influence could become even stronger. If he fails to meet expectations, today's victory could become tomorrow's political vulnerability. So Adeleke has won the election, but he has also accepted a new responsibility. Perhaps the most important thing about Osun is not what happened on August 15. It is what political parties do with what happened. Will the APC learn? Will Accord build on its breakthrough? Will Adeleke use his second term to strengthen his political influence? Will other politicians consider alternative platforms? And will the opposition interpret Osun as a model that can be replicated elsewhere? Those questions will become increasingly important as 2027 approaches. One election does not determine the next, but one election can change the strategies, confidence, and expectations of political parties. And that may be the real significance of Osun. Adeleke has demonstrated the strength of incumbency and personal political organization. Oyebamiji's defeat has exposed questions about the APC's strategy. Accord has demonstrated that a smaller political platform can become electorally significant with the right candidate. And Tinubu, by congratulating Adeleke, has shown that acknowledging an electoral opponent's victory does not prevent his party from reviewing and learning from defeat. So the question is no longer simply who won Osun. We know the answer. The bigger question is, what has Osun revealed about the political road to 2027? Is this simply a state-level victory for Adeleke, or is it an early warning that the political calculations for 2027 may be much more complicated than many expected? Could other politicians follow the Adeleke model and look beyond APC and PDP? Can the APC recover and strengthen its position in the southwest, or will voters continue to separate their choices at the state and national levels? These are the questions Nigeria Wave will continue to follow. What do you think? Was Adeleke's victory mainly about his personal popularity and incumbency? Did the APC underestimate the strength of his political structure, or does Osun represent an early warning for the APC ahead of 2027? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this analysis, subscribe to Nigeria Wave, like this video, share it with others and turn on the notification bell. We don't just tell you who won, we examine what the result means, who is affected, and what could happen next. Stay informed, stay engaged, and stay with us as Nigeria's road to 2027 unfolds.